I am presenting an article called The Invisibility of Black Moroccans from a source called The Metric, and it turns out that the author is on the call, so please feel free to correct anything I say that is incorrect, or some of it is my interpretation, so I would be interested to hear what your thoughts are. But moving into the article, so the article is entitled Invisibility of Black Moroccans, and it's a conversation between the author and M'Barek Bouhchichi on art, race, and deconstruction. So this is a Moroccan artist, and I'm going to present his work, his ideas, a little bit about who he is, by highlighting some of the things that he says in this interview. The source, The Metric, is an online platform that is a youth-led platform. It tries to provide a space for people to share stories that are more local and less well-known. This is our artist, M'Barek Bouhchichi, and he speaks in particular of the Africanness of Moroccan identity, we can say. It's kind of reductive, but we'll get into a little bit more as we go through. So he states that I am a man who was born in a context that isn't known amongst Moroccans, or rather a context that hasn't been given a name by Moroccans. They often refer to this place as the desert, the Sahara. The desert is related to the emptiness, el-Khala. This emptiness is an unknown territory that many Moroccans can't identify and prefer not to give a name to. So this is a map of Morocco, and the red circle highlights the village where he's from. He states that this region is a geographic and historical margin, although historically it was a hub for the trans-Saharan trade and important in many Moroccan dynasties. This is a zoomed in picture of the place where he's from, called Akka. And when he talks about where he's from, he uses an analogy of how representation in Western paintings takes place. So he states, sometimes you come across a painted portrait of a duke with a well-written name tag next to it, carrying the name of that duke. However, right next to it, you'll find the portrait of a black man, and they will simply refer to him as un nègre. He doesn't have a name. The desert is there, but it is not there at the same time. It is a place characterized with distance, a constructed distance, where often the Moroccan individual doesn't identify himself or herself to it. So as you can tell from this quote, he's talking a lot about how people who are Black in Morocco are marginalized, and I actually came across this article around the time of in the beginning of the protest movements that followed the murder of George Floyd in the US. So it really resonated with me for that reason. And he talks a little bit about how the African-American voices in the US spoke to him for reasons that, may or may not be obvious to you, but I would encourage you to read the article for more. I'm going to be talking a little bit more about his work and how he artistically tries to deconstruct these racial barriers that exist in North African society in particular. So he talks about this concept of collective horizontal deconstruction as something that motivates his work. It is inspired by the work of Twiza, which is collaborative works in the field or within spaces of celebrations, within villages that didn't belong to anyone, but rather belonged to the entire tribe, al-Jama'a. And he feels like works that are emphasizing the collectivity are very important, and he likes to work with other people to put together the artistic endeavors that he's pursuing. So for instance, he has been to Tunisia a few times, and he collected some natural paints there that he talks about wanting to use in a project with women who weave in Morocco, an art that is being lost. This is an example of one of his works. It uses a lot of natural tones, and interestingly, he learned how to access these natural paints from his grandmother and learns a lot from his grandmother. So this, to me, symbolizes sort of the sameness. The title is We Are All Made of Earth. And I think it kind of emphasizes this togetherness of all different shades of color. This is 3 different paintings that are, for me, symbolic of the desert, trying to highlight the value and beauty of the desert in my mind. And then this is an installation called Earth. This is the installation in a gallery in Berlin, which is actually a pretty cool gallery called Savvy. Check it out online. But this installation was inspired by the words of a potter he met in Tunisia who stated that we are all made of earth. So these are clay objects that are all the same object, a face, but they're just different colors. A critic wrote of this piece, he said, through an almost absurd process of infinite repetition, like an insistent demand or an impassioned prayer, Bouhchichi produces the bare, miniaturized image of an egalitarian humanity. But the huddled population of equals remains inaccessible under glass. This work for me really highlights the idea that he wants to promote, which is that, you know, we're all humans, we're all the same race. There's only one race, the human race, even though we may come in different colors. And unfortunately, this notion is not yet a notion that is widely accepted, as emphasized by the glass over top. This is another project that he's been part of. This is a cultural festival that's taken place in an oasis town in the south of Morocco called Dermert. In 2015, they started this project, and every year they bring together artists and even scientists and get together with folks from this region to create different works of art, have workshops, and really try to promote this place and show that it has value in a way that society traditionally has not allowed this place to have value. He also states that the issue that we encounter is that any Black found in Morocco is told to have come from sub-Saharan Africa, and this is where they are wrong. I am from here. I am here. They wanted to create an island in Africa called North Africa that is desired as white to ensure that imaginaries perceive this Mediterranean to belong to Europe, this little continent that continues to dictate the history of other continents. So here he's really trying to highlight the fact that it is very artificial that we call the region North Africa, and it is symbolic of a desire to separate North Africa from the rest of Africa, driven by this notion of superiority of whiteness, which I'll get to a little bit more. He contributed, along with others, to this work called The Africans. It was published in 2015, I believe, 2016, and he contributed to this work that aims to highlight the ways in which there is inequality and spatial segregation in Morocco, tries to deconstruct that with art that he has created and that's featured in this book. In talking about this book, he says, the Moroccan is confused on whether he is Arab, Amazigh, African, or European. He is fascinated with whiteness. It was a moment for us to say that we needed to experience Africa historically. There was a need to understand what our role has been in the building of this continent, what our current role is, and what the shape that it will take in the future. So in speaking about this book, he alludes to the fact that Africa is a place where there have been many, many important and powerful dynasties that have connected all the different regions of the continent. This is a map that demonstrates the trans-Saharan trade that was very important from the 13th to the 15th century, and you can see all these, dynasties that were extremely important and clearly connected to North Africa in a way that there's this continuity between all these different geographies and therefore cultures and even language. So this whole map is a whole other talk, but just kind of to pique your interest there. So the article has a lot more. I really just highlighted a few things. I encourage you to read the interview. It's really fascinating. The PBS documentary series, Africa's Great Civilization, talks about some of those important civilizations that I showed on that map. And then the website for the festival is super interesting. They have a lot of videos and pictures of the different projects that they've done. And finally, I recently came across an Al Jazeera Plus documentary about sub-Saharan African couscous, which is a fun 20-minute documentary that talks about how couscous is really more than just North African, and how in some ways it's been co-opted by North African, although it really belongs to many parts of Africa. And then an invitation from M'Barek. In the interview, the author asks, if you had to recommend a book, a song, or a piece of artwork that can help individuals make a first step towards this journey of reconstruction, which is something he talks about. And I thought this part was very afikra-esque. So he says, this is quite difficult. I will say it differently. There is a book that I love tremendously that is alive and is still being written. It has power in its writing and also in the ways in which it survives and resists. It's a book that exists in the Moroccan mountains and behind these mountains. It is the lived reality and experiences of those who live in the mountains. I can only ask you all to go and see it, participate, go witness a different reality that writes itself. And that's it. I do actually want to show you this village as questions come in. I'm going to put the sound on not super high so that people can kind of watch while also ask questions. But that's all I have. Sorry, the quality's not great, but hopefully it'll get better.
Bonjour, salam alaikum, Ahmed Debah, un des organisateurs de Caravane Terre-Morte. On a voulu travailler avec les enfants et les femmes et les artistes pour un bien-être à l'Oasis.
Lieu avec tout ce qu'il donne humainement et aussi tous les éléments de vie et quotidien. Ce que je remarque au fur et à mesure des éditions, par exemple cette édition, ça nous a beaucoup permis aussi de vivre un autre volet qui n'est pas de l'ordre statique, mais de l'ordre mobile en quelque sorte. Voir un petit peu tout ce qui se passe en dehors de la Palmeraie, l'expérience qu'on a eue cette nuit, de vivre, de passer la nuit avec les nomades, je trouve très enrichissante parce que ça nous met devant un autre mode d'expérimentation que je trouve intéressant. Ouais. Qu'est-ce qu'on en pense?
Yeah. And then these are some pictures also of the oasis. Just wanted to show you my favorite picture. Okay, I'm done.